Hello students, my name is Jesse George, your professional accounting teacher. Before you continue with this video, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, Georgian Theory Concepts, and love my videos. Thank you. All right, let's get started. In this video, we are going to look at the concept of process costing. And what is process costing? It's a costing method or is a costing system that is applied for products that undergo series of processes, okay? That undergo series of processes. Let's take, for example, you have your input material, for example. The input goes into a process, say process 1. Then it comes out as an output, as an intermediate goods. Now goes into another process as an input. It becomes an input and goes into another, say, process 2. Then when it comes out as an output, okay, and let's assume that this is the final output, then this becomes a finished goods, okay? So when a particular product goes through this process that is serial, that is, process 1 must be complete before going to process 2. Okay, that's why we call it a series of process. Process 1 and 2 cannot be done simultaneously. All right. So costing method now is that we need to calculate the total cost in order to ascertain the costs per unit of each process. Okay, then we come to process 2, determine the total cost so that we can calculate the cost per unit. All right, now how do we calculate the cost per unit? All right, we just divide by the expected output. You divide by the expected, don't forget, by the expected output. Another feature of this is we may have what we call a planned loss as a normal loss. That's the normal loss is normally represented in percentage, say 10% of the total input, okay? It may be, that's the percentage. It may be 10%, it may be 20%, it may be 30% of the inputs. All right, it may be 5%. Take note of that. So don't let me put figure here, and it's representative. Do you get it? Then we also have what we call abnormal loss. The abnormal loss is not planned for. It comes by the way. All right, probably due to unexpected machine breakdown or unexpected quality of material used. Okay, unexpected. Now in this case, the expected, that's the normal output, the expected or the normal output, when it is greater than the actual output, what actually come out, actual output, we have a normal loss. Take note. Sometimes we also have abnormal gain, okay? And you know, sometimes probably the efficiency of the machine, all right, when you use a good quality of material, all right, so in that case the actual output will now be greater than the expected output, or when the expected output is less than the actual output. Okay, all right, so take notes of these basic terms. All right, now we are going to look at a particular question. All right, we look at a question to calculate this. Now let me bring a question to do this. All right, now Maputo Nigeria Limited manufactures its products through three processes. The following data relates to process 2 and process 3 for the months of October. 100,000 units at 10 naira each were transferred from process 1 to process 2. So you have been given the process cost, direct material, direct labor. This is process 2, this is process 3. Okay, you are required to prepare process 2 and process 3 account, the normal loss account, the abnormal gain account. Okay, abnormal gain and abnormal loss account. So I'm going to do the calculation, the workings in this video. Then in the next video we'll look at how the process account is actually being prepared. Okay, so to do that, so what do you have? You have calculation of costs per unit for process 2. Now this is a format. What you have here, you have your units, you have your costs per unit, and you have your value. That's the value. Okay, for process 2. Then you can start with input material. Input material from process 1. So that one is from process 1 is 100,000 units according to the question, and it is valued at 10 naira per unit, and that gives 1 million naira. Okay, then we have additional material. Additional material. Then the additional material is 100,000 naira from process 2. All right, so put dash here, 100,000 naira. Then forget about this. Then we have direct labor for process 2. Direct labor. So my direct labor here is 135. All right, 135. You can copy the question. Okay, 135. Please, you can pause the video, quickly write down the question, then you follow the video as it goes. Okay, so direct labor, put your dash, then that is 135,000. Then we have variable expenses, dash, and that is 30,000 naira. Then we have production overheads, all right, dash, and that is nothing but 250,000 naira. Okay, then apart from that, we have okay, if that is done, then you have our total inputs. So you come down with your 100,000. Then our total here, by the time you add this with your calculator, it's going to give us 1551000. Okay, all right. Then you have your normal loss. So don't forget, this is 100%. Okay, and the normal loss here from the question, you are told that the normal output, that is the expected output, is 90. So our normal loss is now 10%. So the input is 100%. The input is 100%, which is, this is the total input. So the normal loss is now 10% of the input, and that is the 10% of this will give 10,000. Okay, then this gives us the normal output, which is 90%. Okay, and that's when you subtract this, it gives us 9,000, and this is to be sold at a scrap of 3 naira. All right, it's to be sold at a scrap scrap value of loss. That's the normal loss. Is to be sold at a value of 3 naira. And by the time you multiply this, then we have 30,000. And you will use this to minus, to reduce the total cost. And it will give nothing but 148,500. Okay, 5,000. That's 1,485,000. All right. Okay, class. Now we need to ascertain our abnormal. Now the question says the actual output. Take note. Actual output in unit is 85, but our normal output is 90. All right. Then I told you that normal loss is when expected output is now more than the actual output. Normal loss is when the expected output is more than the actual output. So we are going to have an abnormal loss. So abnormal loss when expected output is more than the actual output. So we have 90,000 minus the expected, the actual output in this question is 85. So we have 85,000 units, and that is 5,000 units. That is one. Then our cost per unit, of course, cost per unit is this cost. That's 1,485. The total cost minus the scrap value divided by the 90,000. That's the expected units. Okay, and this will give you 16 naira 50 kobo. 16. So when you divide this with your calculator, 15 naira 60 kobo. That is for process 2. Now we go to process 3. So for process 3, like I told you, you have inputs. Okay, what do you have here? You have your units, your cost per unit, and the value. Okay, so we have the input material. Input material, that's 85. That's the actual. You bring the actual unit of process 2, then you take it to process 3. All right, the actual. Then this is valued at 16 naira 50 kobo, and that total value is nothing but when you multiply this with this is to give you 1402 and 500. Okay, then we have additional material. Put dash. The additional material from process 3 is 114. Okay, you need to bring all this into the solution. Okay, the direct labor, variable expenses, production overhead for process 3. So let's go. So we have 114,000. Then we have nothing but the direct labor. Direct labor is 100,000. Then we have variable expenses. The variable expenses here is 53,500. Then we have production overheads. So the production overhead here is 200,000. All right. Then we need to get a total. Then the total here is 35. That's the total input. 85. Then the total here is 187,000. Then I told you this is the total input, which is always 100%, and you are told that the normal output, which is the expected output, is to be 80% of the input. Therefore, our normal loss is 20%. Okay, so our normal loss is 20%. So what is 20% of 85? That's 17,000. Okay, normal, and it is valued at a scrap value. Now look at the scrap value. The scrap value is 2 naira. So you multiply by this 2 naira, and this gives 34. So it will reduce the cost of production. It will reduce the cost of production. So when you subtract this, we have 68,000. That is our normal output. That's the expected output. 68. Then this will give us 1836000. All right. That's the total cost. So the normal loss has been used to reduce the total cost. That's the law. Now, I told you this is the normal output. Now, what is the actual output? The actual output is now 70. So in that case, we are going to have what we call abnormal gain. Abnormal gain is when the actual output is now more than what we are expecting. Okay, so we are going to have 70 abnormal gain minus 68, and this will give you 2,000 units. Okay, 2,000 units. Then let's calculate our cost per unit. Our cost per unit needs to be determined is this total, this 036 divided by the normal output, and the normal output 680,000, and this will give you nothing but 27 naira per unit. 27 naira per unit. So don't forget, in process costing, like I told you, for each process we need to determine the cost per unit. The cost per unit. All right. So for process 1 and for process 2, we have done that. For process 3, we've done that. Then the question gave us 10 naira per unit for process 1. Then in the next video, we are going to look at the preparation of the accounts. How do we prepare the account when it comes to process costing? It's very, very simple. So if you love this video, please do share with your friends. Thank you. Bye for now.